A big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity. This is indeed a special showing. Don't worry, Brand Equity is not turning into a musical program, but today we're going to be discussing music and brands and how they work in sync. And for that, of course, I have this brilliant team, Rajiv Raja, Ajit Varma, Merlin, and Roel. All of them from Brand Musiq. And today we're going to be having a very intellectual discussion about brands and music and what they do for each other. And of course, a lot of performances as promised by you, Raja.
Absolutely. Very happy to be here, Sonali.
Very happy
Thank
to
you.
be doing this. It doesn't seem like work for me.
Yeah, it never is for us.
Well, on that note, for my audience who have no clue about, what is sonic branding, what brands and music do together, and what it actually does for the end customer, let's start from the very beginning. Yeah, tell me a little bit about what is brand music and what is sonic branding. For the uninitiated, sonic branding is a way of, using music with brands to ensure there is familiarity, there is experience, and there is affinity, and of course, in total brand love. But what does that mean? How does it work? And what is a sonic brand agency? By the way, Brand Musiq is the only sonic branding agency, not just in India, but in Asia. So thank you so much for this honor, Rajiv, and I'll start with you.
Yeah, so as you know, both Ajit and I come from advertising. And while Ajit has been on the business and on the brand strategy side, I've always been on the creative side. So I guess around 10, 11 years ago, we got together with Merlin and Ruel, who are my fellow musicians. And we said, let's bring the two worlds of brands and music together. But the whole thing was we didn't want to just be another jingle maker.
Sure.
Because there's a big difference between jingles and sonic identity that we create. So we said we need to go deep into sound. We need to understand the science of sound, the science of ragas, how they affect emotions, build a whole brand process. And maybe Ajit, you can talk a little bit about.
Yeah, another way of maybe explaining what we do is we actually take a strategic approach to brand and sound. Hitherto, I think music has always been used with brands. That's nothing new. But I think looking at it through a strategic lens, like you look at many other disciplines to do with branding, that's really, I think, what we do.
Absolutely. And I think the advantage we had was 25 to 30 years of brand experience working on the advertising and marketing side. But also, I've also been a musician all along.
For sure.
Possibly even before I got into advertising. And that's where, Merlin and I met, and we met Ruel, and then we started this whole happy gang.
And now it's happy work.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
We haven't left the happiness out of it.
Yeah.
So, little bit about, sonic identity and sonic branding, and what does it do for a brand to have a sonic identity? I know you've been working with a lot of brands, to build their sonic identity, but it's still quite a new science, right? The music of science and emotion and what it does in terms of brand affinity. I don't see many marketers jumping onto that bandwagon yet, just because of maybe lack of knowledge, a lack of insight. Right. People are just so obsessed with social media and digital media, they can't think beyond.
Absolutely.
But I know that you've done a lot of great work with a lot of brands who've now decided this is important. So talk to me a little bit about how sonic branding works for brands and why is it important?
Yeah, I think, especially in the last three to 5 years, the whole world of sonic branding has exploded. And not just globally, there's a lot of interest and a lot of awareness in India. When we started off, a lot of people would say, oh, so you make jingles.
So really?
Yeah.
No understanding.
No understanding at all, right? So there was a lot of education we had to do. I think the first 3-4 years were just more about meetings than business.
So you weren't making any money?
Absolutely not. And it was just educating people. Look, this is a scientific approach, and just as you approach a visual identity with so much rigor, and you go to a specialist visual identity company to create it, so also must you look at sound and music. And maybe you can talk about how it's difficult for music to be evaluated by a non-musician. Ajit is a non-musician, but he's got good ears. But he could explain it maybe from.
No, I think one is that we always talk about a brand world and a brand world being consistent. And
Yeah.
if you go into a showroom, let's say of Nike or any other brand, you'll see brand colors and etc. But I think once we internalized the fact that brands are consumed not with our eyes, we consume it through all our sensorials. What we're doing is adding, we're not replacing anything, but adding to that brand experience by bringing in the sensorial sound. Sound, of course, has many other sort of qualities. One is that it creates emotional connect. So most brands want to have that connect with their stakeholders, and sound is a nice ally there. The other thing is with, I think, the digital age and a lot of apps, etc., there are many more ear points. We call them ear points, basically oral touch points, simply available in the marketplace. You can hear a brand on an app, you can hear it, in a radio station, you can hear it on social media, etc., etc. And is there something to tie that whole thing together? Again, sound becomes and sound can do it without being too obtrusive. I mean, it's not in your face.
Yeah.
We give an example of, let's say, an advertorial about, let's say, a tourism, show where you can have brand sound playing, but it isn't interfering with you consuming the content. You don't like, none of us like to be plowed with messages as we are consuming something. So sound has that ability. It can be there. It can, like we say, sometimes we consume sound unconsciously.
Sure.
So we don't know we're consuming it.
Yeah. Fair enough. But you said that he's not a musician, but he has good ears. But I am sure that all of you meet marketers who are not musicians and neither have good ears, right? What do you do in such a situation? Because you're pitching to them,
Yes.
and you're doing this great musical brainstorming, but a lot of them don't have a musical sense, and then it is so subjective.
No, absolutely right. Absolutely. So, can I take you through a little sonic experience?
I would love that. Yes.
So this is really how we begin our conversations with marketers.
With any prospect.
Yeah, with any prospect, it's really getting them to experience music.
Okay.
So I invite you to just shut your eyes.
Done.
And I'm going to play a short piece. And as you listen, you'll probably see some imagery, you may feel some emotions, it may trigger some memories. Don't try and analyze the piece of music, just go with the flow, let your imagination flow, and we'll come back and have a little chat about what you saw and felt. Yeah?
Yes.
So eyes closed. Okay, you can open your eyes. So, did you see any imagery? What did you feel? There's no right or wrong answer. Yeah.
Mountains, a stream.
Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Is that the right answer?
Absolutely.
No, there is no right answer.
But the beauty is, wherever in the world we've played this, not just to an Indian audience, everybody plays back mountains, rivers. A Russian gentleman went to the mountains in Georgia and he saw waterfalls and butterflies, children playing. Now, why is everyone feeling like this? It's not by accident, it's by design.
Okay.
So this particular scale that I used is a very famous South Indian scale or rag called Hamsadvani.
Okay.
Virtually means Song of the Swan.
Okay.
And it uses only 5 notes in the scale. So it only uses these 5 notes. That's it, right? This is a composition of ours called Peace.
Okay.
And because it has only these 5 notes, it's called a pentatonic scale, right? That's penta as in 5.
Okay.
And this scale is universal. Every musical culture has some form of this scale.
Oh.
So whether it's Chinese music or whether it's jazz, everybody uses a pentatonic scale. So there is a commonality. The whole world gets the same impression, even though I'm an Indian flute player playing it.
Sure.
So that proves to us that there is a common response to music and to musical scales,
Right.
which we can sort of isolate. But at the same time, it's also, you probably have other residual imagery. Some people go back to their hometown. Nostalgia.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
India, a lot of people say Malgudi days.
Oh,
It
yeah.
reminds-
Yeah,
you know,
pretty close.
backwaters of
or
Kerala.
backwaters of Kerala, etc. So there's a universality, at the same time there's a personal experience.
Sure.
So we said, if we're able to understand scales, now let me demonstrate this further. If I, from major to minor. Okay.
Do I need to shut
So-
my eyes?
No need.
But keep your ears open.
So if I take the first three notes of the scale, right? So now I'll change only the third note, the first two notes remaining the same. Did you feel a sadness?
For sure.
Melancholy?
Immediately.
Yeah? One note change.
Ah.
And a lot of people have moved from sunrise to sunset with one note change. So this is the science of sound. And this is the science of music that we started exploring. And we said, we have a rich heritage of Indian ragas. You won't believe it, the ragas are mapped like periodic tables.
Oh.
So they've clearly mapped out this combination of notes will make you feel like this combination of notes will make you feel like this. So we use this science and then, of course, bring in some other, we are very proud of our Indian heritage,
Sure.
but we apply it to a universal kind of application.
Okay. Okay.
So,
There's also a response to what you asked earlier about people being familiar with music or knowledgeable
Yeah.
or not. But if you take your own case, what we went through just now, we find that everybody has a response to music. So I might know music, not know music, but when I close my eyes and I listen to something, I have a response to it. And I get some meaning out of it.
Sure.
And what we've also seen is that meaning is more or less universal,
I
It's
see.
not very different.
So I think it's similar to, let's say, colors, right? People use a lot of colors in terms of how one reacts or feels. So it's similar.
right.
It's similar. We say that the grammar of colors and the visual grammar is more familiar to us as lay people. So we say that red means this and
Yeah,
green means this.
exactly.
But Rajiv can, explain us a note or a tone, and we don't understand what that means. We are not yet.
It's
We're
technical.
not familiar with that grammar.
Yeah.
But we say that maybe 20 years hence, marketeers will be familiar with that grammar too, like we
Yeah.
got familiar with the visual grammar.
Like, for example, if you say, Sonali, you want to design a logo, right?
Oh, wow. What would be the attributes?
what colors would you go for? And then if we were the designers, we'd come and say, Sonali, you're full of energy and sunshine, so you should use yellow.
Ah.
And you'd say, I get it. Okay, yellow, energy, sunshine.
Yeah.
But if we come and say we should use a Mixolydian scale,
No idea.
right? What on earth are you talking about? Right? So that's why there's that education about sound. And back to the question you asked, of it's so subjective. So our whole process that we can talk about is designed at removing subjectivity as much as possible.
Okay.
Finally, you cannot totally get subjectivity
Even a
out,
TV
but-
campaign is basically, somebody's wife may like or may not like it and it is rejected.
Exactly. Haven't we been there?
Your experience with brands who you worked with, and now that you have, a plethora of brands who
Yes.
you've made a sonic identity for, how has been that experience? And can you take me through, one or two examples so that me and my audience understand, this whole process of how you're creating a sonic identity and what goes through it?
So what we really have is a 3-stage process.
Right.
The stages are brand discovery. The second stage we call sonic mapping. The third stage is where we actually expose the prospect to the sonic identity.
Okay.
And the brand discovery is simply getting into the core of the brand, the soul of the brand, so to speak.
Explain that to me, because
So there are two facets really which we're trying to look at, which are key to what we do. Remember, our outcome is music. We're not really, brand consulting here.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
because we're talking about music, the two facets we're looking at is one is personality. We call it avatar.
Okay.
And it's another expression for personality. We use Carl Jung's theory of archetypes for that.
Okay.
And the second is emotion, or what we call rasa, the core rasa. And for there we have a rich tradition of rasa theory in the Indian system.
Indian theory of rasas.
So the Navarasas,
Amazing, Navarasas,
which is really centuries old, and it has So we borrow from there to understand what are the emotions that the brand wants to express.
So give me an example so that, it just sits better with me and of
So
course people are
let's
watching.
demonstrate
Yeah,
something
yeah,
musically.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's
Take a
say
brand like-
let's say you're a ruler brand,
Ah,
right?
ruler brand.
Ruler.
Like dominant.
Yeah, dominant. You're the leader in the
dog.
category.
Yeah, yeah.
Then say your rasa or the key emotion that you say, hey, I'm a ruler, but I don't want to come through as pompous.
Humble.
I don't want to come through as a distance between me and the consumer.
Benevolent?
Yeah, a benevolent ruler.
That's a nice one.
Ooh.
Right. So now,
But who is deciding this that I don't want to come across as
the client, the brand
okay.
team.
Oh, the brand.
The
So they're
brand
telling
team.
you this.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
This during
We
the
are
brand
actually-
discovery.
We are actually just facilitating.
Okay.
We're not speaking on behalf of
So we're saying, how do you see your brand?
okay.
Where do you slot yourself? Are you, for example, the avatars could be, are you a ruler? Are you a caregiver? Are you a creator?
Okay,
So Apple is a creator brand.
Right,
Mercedes is a ruler brand.
Okay. Okay.
J&J Baby is a caregiver brand.
Okay.
So on and so forth.
Yeah.
And they all evoke certain emotions.
Right.
So if you're a caregiver brand, you could be evoking karuna, the rasa of karuna or caring,
Okay.
That's the rasa. As a ruler, you could be evoking admiration, or you could be projecting respect or veera,
Also, yes.
awe. So that comes under the rasa of adbhuta.
But it's also from a ruler brand.
It's also from the ruler brand.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's
You
where
have to
the
decide.
dimensions become very interesting.
Okay.
So that's how you differentiate between one ruler and the other, because not all rulers, for example, the Tata brand is a ruler brand,
For sure.
but it's got karuna
Yeah, for
or
sure.
caring in it as a rasa.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
now that makes it a very unique combination, because
Correct.
not many rulers have that heart,
Benevolence.
the benevolence,
Yes.
and which is acknowledged by the public. It's not just me saying, hey, I'm like this. No, we all know the Tata brand is a ruler brand, but it's a
absolutely.
very caring, it's a
We
very...
know a lot of other ruler brands that claim to be philanthropic and are not.
Exactly. Well, we'll not go there.
No, we're not going there. We'll be sued.
But you're right. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So it's a play between the avatar and the rasa, which gives us the unique dimension that we want for the brand. And then that gets translated into music, which is what
Okay.
Raji, Molly,
So
and Ru will do actually.
taking the example a little further, we created the global sonic identity for MasterCard.
Yeah.
Right? Now, during this whole process, what emerged? Essentially, what are we trying to do? We're trying to create the sound of priceless.
Correct.
Right.
Priceless moments.
Priceless moments.
Yeah.
It's been
Now-
their property for years.
But that's an abstract brief, right? If you went to any musician and said, create the sound of priceless, right? What are you talking about? But when we go through this, the brand comes alive. So MasterCard is a very magical brand.
Sure.
At the same time, it's a very inclusive brand. It's got an Aam Aadmi nature to it,
Yeah,
regular
yeah.
person also. But at the same time, it's very optimistic,
Aspirational.
very aspirational, optimistic, empathetic, and modern tech.
Sure.
So
sure.
now if we were to sit as a team and we've got this brief of magical and optimism, etc., how would we approach it? So say, hey, Merlin, magical, let's hear magical, right? Right? Through history, there have been, Walt Disney uses the sound of these kind of tones to create it.
okay.
So it's in our subconscious as a society, right? So that's becomes a beginning point. And then we say, so it's got to be optimistic. Anybody in the world is got to have a melody that's so simple,
Easy to hum.
that's very easy to hum. So, Merlin, why don't you play the
I guess
Yeah, go for
culmination
it.
of sound, rhythm, voice,
It's all of that. The
Silence.
instrumentation that you use.
voice,
Do you use a
music.
violin? Do you use a guitar? Because each instrument evokes
Yeah.
a different kind of emotion. So all that, a lot of planning goes into finally.
So, Ruel, what,
Designing the
priceless?
sound.
Let's go for priceless? Yeah?
The world has changed, and life has changed. So we ask, what's priceless to you?
preguntaba, ¿encontraré mi lugar? ¿Le gustará como juego? ¿Extrañaré lo que dejé atrás? Pero si hay algo que aprendí, es que mientras hagas lo que amas, las cosas que no tienen precio te siguen a todas partes.
Amo el fútbol.
Yo también.
MasterCard, proud sponsors of UEFA Champions League. Proud sponsors of what's priceless to you.
So the melody really is ta-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra, pa-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra, pa-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra, pa-ra-ra, pa-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra. Now to make it optimistic, you'd probably set a rhythm like dun, 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 you know,
Okay.
get a
I
beat
get it.
in.
Yeah, yeah.
Pa-pa-ra-ra-ra-dun, dun,
Wow.
ta-ta-ra-ra-ra-pa.
Oh, you can do different iterations.
Pa-ra-ra-ra-ra. Exactly. Now you want to make it caring.
Wow.
Maybe strings and voices.
You want to create a version for the European League football?
Let's all sing.
1, 2, 3.
4, 1.
You know, that's
Oh,
the.
wow. Wow.
So
Very cool.
the whole thing is to first get a melody. We call it a mogo, which is short form for musical logo.
Okay.
And once you put the mogo into a melodic framework, that becomes a mogoscape, which is like the sonic palette of the brand. It's the largest sound.
Okay.
And this has the flexibility to be used in different situations as we demonstrated, because every brand is multi-dimensional. It's not unidimensional. So there will be different situations that the brand has to respond to, different pieces of creative that it has to create. So for that, the music has got to be adaptable enough. From a base melody, it's got to be embellished and adapted for different kinds of ear points that we spoke of.
Is there any, like, how many brands have you now created a sonic identity for?
What, 50 to 100?
Wow.
I think
really?
more than that, yeah, more than that. I would
Wow,
say.
okay. So that's
Yeah.
quite a lot, right? Is there anything, because today we are living in the world of ROI, so is there, like when you go and meet marketers, right, won't they ask you, can you demonstrate to me that with creating a sonic identity, I am creating more brand affinity, more, a better brand customer experience, and hence more sales?
Yes. I think Ajit gets asked that every day, so you can answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is that we're talking about a new sort of discipline, and brands have just started getting into it. But theoretically, if you have to look, like you measure anything in,
Sure.
like brand affinity, you can have a pre-scores of the sonic identity being introduced and see brand affinity, brand love, etc. And then you can track it over a period of 2 years once the identity has come into the mix, and you can measure affinity. So there are various ways of sort of tracking what, and isolating and tracking what music does for you.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to have that amount of time with your identity have
Yeah, of
run in,
course, yes.
and then sort of committed to measure, being important to you. But
how do you measure?
like I said, like you measure what a pack change can do to your brand in terms of likability, etc. Or you can have sound adding certain aspects to proposition. Like if you're a morning brand, like let's for example a tea brand, and you want to cue early morning freshness, etc. And you can see with the addition of certain colors, you can up the scores on those dimensions. The same thing you can do with music.
Okay.
You introduce music and say, is there a change in those dimensions, the way the brand, the consumer is perceiving it? So, I mean, the normal research techniques which are being used for everything else, of course, with music, there's a lot of neuro testing, etc., which comes into play, because you don't want conscious responses from
Sure,
people. You
sure.
want more the, sort of, they talk about implicit research or neuro testing, where you're unconsciously, your brain waves are being sort of tested so that I'm getting responses which are core to you,
Sure.
and not which you have sort of processed through your brain. And
Sure. Now, I know that you guys told me that the first 3-4 years was really awareness and education, right? What is it today? Today, how is the reception from brands today with you? Is the understanding slightly better? Are brands looking at sonic branding seriously? And what are the challenges you face as possibly the only entity that is doing this, right? In terms of opening doors and actually getting them to do this?
Yeah, one thing I can say, and I can see Ajit smiling nowadays more, because business is coming in. We are getting calls in.
Oh, it's
Right.
a pull, not a push.
Yeah, 60% of our business today is
I
calls
would say
in.
upwards of that. Yeah.
You know, which is quite amazing, because it was the other way around.
There was no in.
Right.
There was no
We just,
incoming.
Go
just
and
making
pitch.
calls, making connections, meeting people. But today it's fantastic. So definitely, I think all the aware marketers in India have understood that a sonic identity now is no longer just a nice to have. It is becoming a must have.
Okay.
Because really, the power of sound is that it can be subconscious also. Because of if you look at the universe today, you look at youngsters, they're cynical of brands. They're cynical of branding. They're cynical of the ads.
Sure.
So music can be a powerful ally for a brand, because if you like a piece of music, you don't question it. You just love it.
You don't analyze it as to.
You don't analyze it, right? You don't question its
intent.
intentions.
Yeah.
So if brands, therefore, the first thing is to get the match. You must get sound that's exactly matched to your brand personality or emotions. But at the same time, take that forward and build it strategically so that you start building this connection. And I think a certain brand truth and sincerity comes through with music. And brands are really enjoying that. Sorry.
So what are the most stupid questions you've been asked? I mean, I'm sure there would have been many.
अरे ये जिंगल है क्यों इतना चार्ज करता है
5 सेकंड के लिए इतना
5 सेकंड के लिए इतना
But if I take you back to your question about what is the market situation now, I think there's a lot of interest, more than interest, people actually coming out and buying the service. Okay, so they're paying for it and buying. But maybe as the industry gets more mature, as a life cycle, you'll get more commitment, more rigor in implementing what you have. We have brands which we've done work for, we've done our identity in 2015.
HDFC Bank.
HDFC Bank
For
as the example, which still uses it with commitment. It's there on their ATMs, etc., etc. So that's the sort of thing. You keep at it. You don't give it up, because every year I think they're getting something back from it. But it requires that much time.
Yeah,
to
it
be able to-
requires implementation on a sustainable basis,
sustainable
right?
and-
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And whenever they've thought of new initiatives, they've thought of ways how they would change the sound, working from the core sound,
Sure.
but modernizing it, making it slightly younger, etc., etc. So I think marketers need to go look at it as a long asset. And if you're able to do that, I think it pays back.
And if I must just understand, how much does it cost to bring, get a sonic identity? Because that's the first thing they'll ask you, right? It's looked at like a cost. It's definitely a cost to the P&L and in their marketing budget. So sonic identity, what is the cost? Already they're looking at this, that, and the other. So what is like the average? Don't have to give me your breakdown, but I'm just asking you. Rajiv's looking at me like, what is this question?
For a lot of the brands in India, we would pitch it at somewhere in the region of about 75 lakhs.
Okay.
But we're saying it's an asset for life, meaning you're buying it.
Yeah, of
In
course. It's
perpetuity.
their IP.
Yeah, it's their IP in perpetuity across anything. In the television world, you buy rights for TV or your radio. This is not that, because it's a brand asset.
Yeah,
you want to
sure.
use it on your lift, you use it on your lift. You want to use it in your
sure.
home, you use it in your home. It's your asset, like you said, your IP, which you're buying off. And if you look at it, if you're able to integrate it into content over a long period of time, then it actually makes sense.
Yeah,
Then if you
sure.
try to do the math, it works in your favor.
Right.
So globally, of course, the costs are
Price-
different because
prices are much different.
of the geographical spread and
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
countries and that kind of stuff.
But with Rajiv, with brand music, it's well worth our weight in gold, right?
yeah, of course.
But tell me, what is the kind of understanding and insights and even usage globally for sonic branding? Are they slightly more advanced than the Indian market, or are we at par in terms of just understanding the use cases and building a sonic asset like this?
I don't know. I don't think they're more advanced.
Yeah,
No?
I think
Okay.
we're about the same
I think
stage.
it's about
At
the
a
same.
nascent level, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've you asked what one of the challenges we have is how do we really exploit the potential of sonic branding globally?
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just an Indian market. We see ourselves as a global brand.
Good.
Right. We just happen to be based in India, so there's a whole market out there. And how do we go there? So we have set up some representation in LA,
Okay.
Singapore, so Dubai, so on and so forth. But going there, and we find it's much very similar situation there. Some marketers know, not all.
Okay,
Right?
so that really depends on the evolution of the marketer.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
And also the practice. So in the West, yes, sonic branding as we know it, Intel, for example,
Yeah.
dum, 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 right?
True, yeah.
But they still concentrate on the sonic logo, or what we call the MOGO, right? And to them, that seems to be the definition of sonic branding. For us, we say, look,
You're right.
That's one facet of it, one part of it.
that's
But
MOGO
that's not the whole.
or sonic logo is just one part.
MOGO as a musical logo.
Musical logo, right? That's why we call it a musical logo, because we believe there has to be a musical element in your sonic branding, because human beings respond to music.
That's the connect.
Emotionally, you respond to music. When you hear the first strains of Beatles, Here Comes the Sun, I mean, you're just transported to another
for sure.
place, right? Now, the beauty of sonic branding or a MOGO is it's like your tagline. That's not the be-all and end-all of your entire branding, but at the same time, it can trigger association. So over time.
I have a question, right? So I'll make it simple. Let's say, right, Sonali, the brand, for simplicity, right?
Yes.
When you're doing the quiz with me to understand, what are the right ragas or the emotion, when you're trying to make the avatar, right?
Yes.
I might have a very delusional sense of self.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Like most people, right? And you may have a better understanding of my attributes to build that identity. Do you find that problem with a brand where they give you, a sense of their identity which holds untrue because everybody sees themselves with rose-tinted glasses, right? How do you? I have a name that is jumping up, but I just can't say it on TV. How would you? I'm sure that we've seen many brands who must be thinking they're great, but they're actually quite, not much to talk about. How do you ensure that the value systems, the ethics in which you are actually designing for them are at par? Because if you do something that is very dramatic according to their characteristics and their definition, it's also
No, it
come
won't
back to
work.
you now.
It won't work.
It has to come from a brand truth.
I think
it
that
has to come.
But how do you tell them that this is not your truth, this is your false?
So that's,
Yeah,
I think,
so I think
gray hair
helps. Gray hair helps, yes, for sure. And I think there are two parts to it. One is that we say that it's not an advertising tool, it's not a communications tool, it's a brand tool. So you should have everybody who represents the brand in that room, in the brand discovery. So we encourage people from production, from research, from CMI, all, let's say, take a bank, it has all the disciplines which are outside of, let's say, the traditional, Marcom role to be there. So they have a more, they can, and everybody can bring his or her, perspective into it.
Sure.
And try to get opposing views and try to get the group themselves to
Brainstorm.
To come to a conclusion, because we are saying we are facilitators. Of course, because we've spent some time in this business, we are able to maybe gently say, the point that you said, that maybe, are you sure you're, this will be credible? Because if it's not credible, it's not going to work for anybody, is it?
So I have to ask you a question, because you guys are the right people. Since you are doing this exercise with brands and clients, and all companies have this great thing about their motto, their vision, their ethics, their value systems. It's great. Everything is there on paper. My question is, are do brands really know themselves? You'll be in a great position because you're doing this exercise with them. Or is that an exercise? Is there a business opportunity there? Get to know yourself.
Well, there could be, but to be fair to most of the marketers we've dealt with, actually they have an intuitive feeling for the brand, you know, and that's the whole. Our process is built for intuition and feeling, rather than analysis and
Data.
and logic, you know. So when you get that feeling out that this is what I want to communicate, this is the persona of my brand as I see it, that becomes then very simple to put it into music and to explain the logic to them. So they say, okay, you're a ruler brand. That's why we do a breakdown and we say that's why we've got dum the drums, you know, the big drums at the back. But you want to create empathy along with that, so we have a female voice. Even though the big drums are going on, you have a voice of going. Right?
Oh, okay.
So these elements all start mixing and matching basis your avatar and rasa. So the challenge now is bringing in AI and technology. You asked about validation. So we are in the process of doing exactly that, of getting AI and technology to validate. And AI can do that, right? If you feed in a piece of music.
AI can also do this.
No, it still can't compose. It still can't compose like we can.
Give it time, Rajiv. Give it time. That
give it
too will
time.
happen.
Chat GPT is already.
Yeah, exactly.
Already will happen.
We're all redundant shortly.
But AI can validate whether you're in the right emotional zone.
I see.
Right? So if you feed in a piece of music, the AI can tell you, is this going to make people happy? Is it going to make people sad? Is it going to make people excited?
So is this what Labs is about?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Brand Music Labs.
Yeah.
That's
Labs
really
is all about sort of the knowledge aspect of what we do. It could be measurement, it could be, every facet of this whole world where we want to understand more about how it impacts human beings, how it impacts emotions, how technology can be used for measurement. So we say that the lab area is everything which is in the knowledge management of our space of sound and brand. That's what labs would get into.
Sure.
So we'll be, I mean, he talked about intuition and, but more and more clients want to be reassured that, what they're doing is
not just
going
subjective.
to deliver that.
Yeah.
And so the more knowledge we had, when we can bring to the table, we're actually going to tell somebody that I'm telling you that this response will happen because of this. And we have data to prove that will happen.
Sure. I have a business question, right? For Brand Music as a company, you build this identity and you give it to the brand and it's a one-time sale, right? They buy the IP and it's theirs. They don't have to keep paying you every time they use it, right? It's not like an artist. So basically, your one-time sale with a client and your business is done.
Yes.
Yes and no.
There is
Challenge
no repeat.
two.
There is no repeat. Yeah, of course, a big challenge.
Challenge
yeah.
number 2, yeah.
There is no repeat business.
No, there is. I'll
there
explain
is.
to you.
Yeah.
There's, so like we say that when we started off, we were like a design shop. We would create a package and hand it over. Today, more and more brands are coming back to us saying, so we say we design and manage the identities of brands. So they're saying, when we use it in content, can you help us integrate this asset into our day-to-day content? It could be television, it could be social media, etc., etc., etc. So for a lot of brands, we are now working on content.
Okay.
So we're not a TV sound maker in that sense, but we do television sound for brands for which we've done the sonic identity.
Okay.
And that could work on social media, TikTok, etc., etc. And I think that's going to happen more and more because, like I said, while the maturity or the evolution happens, people will understand that they should use it in everything. And that's when it pays back to the brand. And when they want to use it in everything, then they need to sound. I think there will come a time when the whole ecosystem will know how to do this. But today, I think today we are pretty well placed to marry these two worlds, the world of the asset and brand content, because we've actually spent all our lives in both these worlds. And
I think the opportunity really is in embedding your sonic identity in every piece of content that you create. So today, if you close your eyes and listen to a brand across though it's much better today than it was 5 years ago, across media, the brand comes through as schizophrenic. Like in terms of its sound.
The voice is different.
sure.
Because one TV spot is something, another TV spot is so there's no connection.
Yeah.
But a Mogo can be the unifier. A Mogoscape can be the unifier. Say, oh, it's this brand. But it's funny at this moment. It's sad at this moment or caring at this moment. But there's a consistency. So HDFC Bank, for example, 1 year we did 100 pieces of content.
Really?
Right. We embedded the Mogo
A lot
into...
of their old content which we introduced our...
Because otherwise, what do? They get stock for, the digital content, the lower. But there's no brand sound there. It's completely different. You've gone and created this huge sonic identity and then you're not building it. So that's our recommendation to clients. You must build it into every piece of content, and that's the opportunity for us.
I remember Raja from Mastercard last year did a whole launch of his music album,
Absolutely,
right?
priceless.
And he had the artists from everywhere, and everywhere at some point there was the
Mogo playing.
Yes,
integrated into it.
in between somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is a
Absolutely.
fantastic idea. I felt.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like big stars, they're creating albums and they have their Mogo somewhere
Correct.
inside.
Correct.
Yeah. So fair enough. I think it will take time.
It'll take time, but there are opportunities, certainly.
But yeah, fair enough. Would you like to give some pearls of wisdom to brands and marketers who are listening to this show?
Call us.
We don't share us.
No, but jokes aside, really, I think with the digital media exploding, brands are really having a tough time with all the clutter and with the habits of our younger generation who are so, the attention spans are smaller and smaller. Visual fatigue is happening. Just we're staring at a screen like the whole day.
Comprehension levels are also reducing.
Right. So sometimes you want to give your eyes a rest, and Sonic can play a huge role in that. But it has to be strategically done because sound and music, as we know, is a double-edged sword, right? If you use it too much, it can get irritating and annoying.
Yeah, true.
Right. So how do you balance that? That's why you need specialists like brand music to be able to manage it for you.
I think very simply, multisensorial, we've played with this one facet, the visual facet, for years as marketeers, and we need to add more to that repertoire, and sound is one more thing. And it has certain unique dimensions as ability to, I always give the example, we suddenly find ourselves humming a tune and we don't know where we picked it up. You say, where did I get this from? Actually, I've heard you humming it, or at home I've heard my child humming it, and then it creeps into my system.
Sure.
And it doesn't exit. I can't say go.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of qualities which are very, very strong for brands.
But on that note, if you can give me, my closing music for my audience, just as we started.
Why not?
As our music and brand performance on this special showing.
Go for it. So, can we do a few of our
You do what
Mogos?
you want. Yeah. You are the musicians. I'm just a talker.
Okay, this is what we did for Vistara.
Okay, so I guess we're going to do a medley of medley of different sonic identities. Yeah,
yes,
beautiful,
absolutely.
beautiful.
Fly the new feeling.
Fly the new feeling, Vistara.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed watching this show as much as I've enjoyed discussing sonic branding and, of course, listening to just amazing music. And please let us know what you thought. You can write into us on Twitter or on our brand equity page on Facebook.
Great, thanks, Sonali. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Chatting with you. So, Vistara is all about, being cared for in the air, very peaceful feeling. So, this was the basic melody that we created.
Lovely. Really beautiful. This
MG model?
Yeah. So MG Motors, wow, automotive coming into town. That was the Mogo
of MG
of
Motors.
MG Motors.
You can bank on us with HDFC.
Yes.
So never ending.
Yeah. So it was about the story goes on. They didn't want to give the feeling of
Ever evolving.
the story. Yeah, ever evolving. That was really the essence. The original was created with a bit of fusion feel. There was a sitar and but we'll just play the melody.
Never stopping.
Yeah. It's probably be familiar to a lot of people. Set up a rhythm. And that's Merlin D'Souza on keyboards, founder, partner, brand music, amazing composer, musician, and that's Ruel. Ruel is a fantastic sound engineer, programmer, composer, musician. And that's Ajit Verma, co-founder and CEO Brand Music. My name's Rajiv Raja.
You can give your designation too.
Okay, my designation is founder and soundsmith of Brand Music.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And the Mogo? HDFC Bank.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you,
so much.
thank
That
you,
was
thank you.
fantastic. Fantastic. So glad we did this. And
Absolutely.
I hope through this show, people are slightly more educated about sonic branding than they were, let's say,
I'm sure they will.
half an hour ago.
Thank you,
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Sonali.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic.